In this lesson, we will be looking at airport charts. Here I have some samples of airport charts. We will be looking at the one for Amsterdam, Netherlands, Schiphol Airport. What we will be looking at is the different information that are found in these charts. The frequencies, airport layouts or the airport diagram, where to find runway information, some information about procedures, the stand coordinates, various other instructions in order to plan the route to a runway or from a runway to a stand. So that's what the airport charts are for. Now today we've got an airport chart that is of a different color. It's printed on yellow paper, and that's because there's something important about this chart that the authorities would like you to see before you get on to the rest of the airport charts. This particular one is a temporary chart because there have been some changes to this area. If your aircraft or the aircraft that you're planning for is using any one of these areas or is found within this chart or plans to arrive into this area, then this chart is for you. Otherwise, you may ignore it. So you've been notified that this particular area, there are some differences from the regular chart. That's the first thing out of the way. And the reason that we have this particular temporary chart is because there's work in progress at this time. Okay, now this is an old chart, it's a sample. Don't be put off by the date, but there is an effective date, which is 29th September of 1997. Alright, so this is a sample. Now let's look at the rest of the airport charts. An airport chart is basically a diagram showing the layout of the airport, as well as at a glance shows us all the pertinent information. For example, do you have the right airport chart for the particular dates? All the critical communication information is given here. Pilots arriving or departing, first thing that they would have is they have the ATIS, they have Schiphol delivery for departure clearance, they have the ground frequency and the tower frequency, okay, as well as the departure frequency. All the pertinent information, all the important people that an aircraft needs to be in contact with is already found on the first page of the airport chart. This information is again found in the various different charts depending on who the particular aircraft needs to be in communication with. Okay, so obviously an aircraft that is going to do takeoff would have the tower frequency on that particular chart for his departure, and he would also have the departure frequency on his standard instrument departure chart. That's a lot of information to take in, and we're just getting started. Again, the airport chart basically gives us the diagram or the lay of the land for the aerodrome, as well as where the particular runways are, where the terminals are, and where the gates are in general. There are a few different airport charts that accompany this, so they're all called airport charts. On the reverse of this particular airport chart, we actually have some instructions on what each runway is supposed to be used for, as well as the actual runway information. Things like whether there's lighting available, whether there's poppies, where the poppies found, so the landing lights, glide slope information, thresholds, length and width of the runway, so the physical characteristics as well as the takeoff and landing requirements can be found on this page of the airport chart. We also have other procedures that form part of the airport charts. For example, low visibility procedures. In this particular case, there's startup and pushback procedures. For example, the first instruction for an aircraft that's ready to start up would be to request permission from Schiphol delivery, and even tells the operators what needs to be met before they call for clearance to start up the engine. For example, the aircraft doors must be closed and they must be ready for pushing the aircraft back. Now the airport chart that we saw just now, that diagram was quite zoomed out. We have a clearer airport chart, which is the zoomed in airport chart for after the aircraft has landed, that you really need to see in fine detail or in better detail where the taxiways are, the labeling of the taxiways. This gives us a better pictorial view than this one. You can see it's zoomed in and we can show more detail and we can give better instructions. We can print better instructions. For example, aircraft that cross this line can expect instructions to change frequency, and they've even been given the frequency. Vice versa when crossing the boundaries between the two areas of responsibility. So we have these telephone markings that basically tell us which area of the airport falls under which ground controller. Right, here we have more information for the same areas, priority rules for ground traffic. Again, procedures and protocols are found in these airport charts that need to be studied by the crew that operate the aircraft. Now where do we come in? Well, where to find the aircraft? Together with the airport charts, we also have INS coordinates, or the stand table. Which gate or bay, well, what's the GPS coordinate of the particular place that the aircraft is being parked at. On this chart it also gives pushback instructions to the tug operator as well as to the pilots which way the aircraft will be pushed back from the stand. So here we have a pictorial view of some of the places on the apron that may not be a stand. Okay, and these could be remote bays, places on the apron, and the respective GPS coordinates. For example, if we were parked in the general area M74, then our GPS coordinates would be in this area, 1 through 73 and M74. So 74 we would use north 52, 18.2 east, 447.5. And that would be the GPS coordinates that should tally with the aircraft navigation system. If they don't, then that's what needs to be entered into the aircraft navigation system as the aircraft current position. Other information that is found on the airport charts are things like visual docking and guidance systems. So if you don't have a marshaller, guidance system can guide your operating crew into the gate. And after we've got all that settled, we come back to the airport chart. Remember we looked at the after landing section. Well, if we were departing the airport, we would look at the reverse side of that for taxi routings for before takeoff. And basically this chart shows us, using a bunch of arrows which are easy to follow, how the aircraft should taxi to each runway. And we simply follow the arrows. Here's how to get to runway 01 left, or if we were not going to 01 left, if we were going to 19 right, then instead of turning here we would follow the arrows and we'd simply go up the chart, and that's how to get to runway 19 right. Doesn't always follow this sequence, but more often than not it does. So that's to give the pilots some anticipation for them to do proper planning. And that is our introduction to airport charts.